if you're a worker who never had a union representing you and you could never get more than 3 weeks holiday, you've now got 4. You've now got your paid parental leave. Your kids are getting a better deal in tertiary education. So out there, I think there is an appreciation of what we've done. Then there's the people who say, good God, Helen Clark kept us out of Iraq. That was the smartest thing that ever happened. But Bill English and John Key said we should have been there.
How does it feel though? I mean, according to the text files, I know that we can, after the debates, you can argue that the people with the money do it and that it's a right-wing group that do it. But you failed to win the first 2 leaders' debates. An opinion on who won the third is around 50-50. Do you think you've met your match with John Key in terms of public speaking?
Absolutely. But you see, those text polls, we got advice on. We could rig that poll for $30,000.
Right.
Actually, we've got better things to do with $30,000. But there's.
Are you suggesting that the Nats?
Oh, absolutely. They've got systems where they basically blitz and nobody else can get through. Now, what our people do is they sort of ring them one by one. But you ask a Heartland Labor supporter who's bringing up their kids on the average wage or below, are they going to spend 90 cents per call to make 50 calls? Of course they're not.
When you say it costs $30,000, do you mean that there's a company you can hire to do that, or do you mean
there's technology where you can blitz it?
And you think that National blitz them?
Absolutely.
Is it hard hearing the criticism and hearing the personal criticism? Because I
think I've got a bit deaf, actually. No, I don't bother with it. And that's really why I didn't bother watching the analysis last night. But what's Michelle Bogue going to say? Michelle Bogue is an absolutely committed partisan National Party supporter. Why would I even be interested in what she says?
So has this election, let's go back to the election, do you think this election's been fought on policy?
Well, it's been hard to get the media to focus on policy and on the huge difference. The media, I think mainstream media, want to run a kind of Tweedledum and Tweedledee. It's not Tweedledum and Tweedledee. It's very basic differences between parties. It's Labor that's been upfront, says what it'll do, goes for jobs, goes for public health, goes for public education, putting out great new policy, by the way, for example, with the student allowances, moving to the universal student allowance over the next 4 years. But it's very hard to get airtime for that because out on the road they're more interested in whether you slipped on a bit of greasy chicken in the Riccarton Mall than in an important policy.
I was talking to Chris Trotter about this. The fact that you get about a minute and a half on the mainstream news.
That's right.
You know, that it's
Barack Obama got more, right?
Yeah, and that it's incredibly difficult to kind of get that policy through. And we haven't seen a lot of the smaller MPs go forward. Is that a policy of the main parties, or is that the media just basically not giving them airtime?
Well, pretty much the media are following the leaders. They don't do too much else. Actually, we've had our spokespeople releasing most of the policies. And at King Police last week, Phil Goff Justice yesterday. I've got Judith Tizzard on other programs talking about the arts and culture policy today. So we have used our spokespeople, but the media aren't that interested in that.
Do you think that this is a nanny state?
Hell no. But I'll tell you what I do think is nanny state. In Mr. Key's proposed 100 days of action, he says he's going to increase the fine for parents whose kids don't go to school. I mean, how nanny state can you get? Look, some great parents have got kids who are horrible brats. What purpose is served by trying to wreck the parents financially because their kids are brats?
Well, I've done talkback, and on talkback, you know, no matter what you say or what you do, and I've done ZB, you know, it's a nanny state. It's a PC nanny state. You know, that's the catch cry. We've got to get rid of Auntie Helen, this PC nanny state. Why has it turned into
They've
this?
said it for 9 years, right? Yep. These are people who are out on the right in politics. There's a kind of moralistic fundamentalism that's involved in it as well. It just becomes a mantra. Now, you know, when people are challenged with, well, what do you mean? Well, first thing they'll say is, oh, the child discipline bill. My point is 113 out of 121 members of Parliament voted for the damn thing. That means all of the National Party, all of the Labor Party, all of the Green Party, all of the Maori Party, 2 New Zealand First MPs, Jim Anderton, half of United Futures Caucus. I mean, let's get real. Parliament spoke with virtually one voice on this issue.
And this is the thing. I mean, I interviewed Jonathan Coleman, and first thing out of his mouth, PC nanny state, and I said, well, so what?
So what?
What
does it
exactly
mean?
is? I said, let's be honest. Prostitute law reform, civil unions, Section 59, and the ETS. That's what the general public out there go as nanny state. And I asked him, which ones of those would you get rid of? None of them.
No.
John Key's not going to get rid
That's
of any
right.
of them.
They're not going to make any changes to any of them.
So why is it attached to you? Why is it stuck to your party and not to? Why haven't you been able to get it onto them as well?
And also, you look at some of these issues like civil unions, prostitution law reform. They are private members' bills, and people from across parties voted for them. National MPs voted for the prostitution law reform. Some Labor MPs voted against it.
But you
Same
haven't
with
been able to
civil
shake it, have you?
Well, but this is a very politicised campaign. Frankly, they're not the key issues of the campaign. The key issues are, who do you really believe is going to deliver the goods for you in an international financial crisis? The people who are going to uphold your jobs and your public services, or the people are going to slash into ribbons and start privatising and cutting things? That's the issue of the campaign.
I guess the other thing that people look at is PC or nanny state, and I'd love to ban the initials PC, because I think people just use them when they want to explain their own racism. But politics is the government's attempts to achieve its Kyoto requirements. Yeah, see, this frustrates me as well. Do you think that there's some kind of denial about climate change? Because we all say we want it, and we also want to recycle, and then every time any government tries to do anything, we go, what do you mean you're banning our light bulbs? What do you mean you're going to reduce our showers? What do we want to be part of Kyoto as long as it doesn't affect us at all.
Well, again, there's been a tremendous amount of silliness in the criticism on this, because there was never a proposal that everybody was going to have to alter the water level in their showers.
But it was one of the parts.
No, it's an energy efficiency thing, and what the compliance proposal points out is you could achieve this in a certain
by
number
doing
of
it this
ways.
way or this way, or having
but
a different
there's
heater.
no requirement on you to alter what goes through your shower. I actually rather like water pressure in my shower. So,
I love it.
But
I just got a new shower.
See, then you come to the light bulbs. This again is energy efficiency. You cannot buy new today the kind of fridge you would have bought 10, 15 years ago. It would not be permitted. Right? Now, nobody's complaining, I couldn't get my old Kelvinator if the label even exists. Times have moved on. The European Union will be banning all the old bulbs within the next 3 to 4 years. Ireland already has. Australia, under John Howard's right-wing government, announced the ban on those light bulbs. I mean, what is this about?
See, but the thing, when I watched the TV1 debate, the first one, and Mark Sainsbury said, coming up next, the environment. I was sitting there with a friend of mine, and he turned to me and went, oh, she's going to nail him on this one. And then, strangely, he nailed you on it.
Well, he told a whole lot of fibs. You see, he told fibs about our greenhouse gas problem being worse than America's. They've got an emission level that's twice ours.
But what he did talk about was forestation increasing. What he did talk about was...
Yeah, but okay, here's the full story. And you can't get this across in sound bites. Yes, New Zealand emissions went up. Why was this? The bottom fell out of forestry. So people converted their land from forestry to dairy. So you had forest sinks going down and farm emissions going up. So you've got obviously a big net increase. Secondly, our economy grew and grew and grew. It averaged about 3.5% growth from the 8 years to the end of last year. Now, when you're growing on the old patterns, of course, that's going to increase your emissions as well. Now, then you go back to the advice that governments were given. Simon Upton was given in the 1990s, and we were given right through till about, I guess, 2005-06. And that was that we were going to be in a net credit position under Kyoto. Well, that just went to custard when Labor got the economy growing faster than anyone thought, and there was the collapse in forestry prices. And there was a third issue as well, that the officials who advised the government had always advised that a certain kind of regenerating scrubland would be counted as forest sinks. Well, that got wiped too. Now, I can't put that into a soundbite. I've got, I depend on someone like yourself who's prepared to listen for 3 minutes to tell the whole story on that.
Did you make a mistake with the ETS? I know that I'm a fan. I think you got to. I'm a believer in man-made climate change, and I think I agree with those people who say you got to tax that carbon so hard that people don't want to pull it out of the ground. But it might cost you this election.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think that's really the key of the issue of the election. But I'll tell you what, if we don't have the emissions trading scheme, our liability for paying up under Kyoto will be twice as great.
John Key went to a Pacific Island factory with 2 Pacific Island sports stars and claimed that change would occur for them as Prime Minister. You say it won't. Why?
for Pacific Island sports.
Well, no, not specifically, I suppose, for the Pacific Island community. He's trying to court
well, only for the worst. Let's face it. In the 1990s, under national, Pacific Island unemployment went to 28%. That's between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 people. It was an absolute disaster. Pacific people couldn't afford the state house rentals. Just everything went to custard for them. Now, even when I became Prime Minister, their unemployment rate was still somewhere around the 14% mark. 14%.